Good morning, my dear students. Welcome you all back to social class. We are dealing with grade 9 history chapter, Socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution. In that, we are seeing about the module 2.5, First World War and the Russian Revolution. So, First World War, you might be knowing this First World War happened in the year of 1914, which created a great impact in the world. Yes. So, if you see, they had two different alliances. Alliance means where two or three countries will join together and fight against the other country. That is called as forming alliance. Similarly, these alliance formation you can even see in the party system which is existing. We might have seen in the electoral politics chapter, right, where they had the formation of alliance which happened before the election is being conducted. So that is the alliance. Similarly, here you can find that alliance has been formed by the European powers. It is called as European alliance. It is between Germany, Austria and Turkey. So these three have formed an alliance. They are called as central power. They are called as central power. Yes. Then you can see that the another party which is being formed, another group of people who have formed this France, Britain and Russia. So France, Britain and Russia. Later you can see that has also joined with Italy and Rome has joined hands with them. That is the later aspects which you can see. And this central power was being strong enough to fight against the other nations, that is France, Britain and Russia. If you see, when this First World War started in 1914, you can find that they had lot of problems. There were fight which is happening inside the European nation as well as the outside the European nations. You can find each nation have formed their own globes, their own emerging as in global aspects. Okay, like you can find that they had their own global empires of their own. You see, Britain had its own empire. Russia has its own empire. Right? Similarly, each of them had their own empire. Inside the empire also they had a fight which has been going on for the formation of a nation state, that is to get into a democratic form of government, and also outside they are in a form to expand their own kingdoms, enlarge their own control upon the other countries. So that is what they are doing. So when this was happening, First World War in the European nations, if you see about Russia, in Russia, you can find that the war was happening. People have joined in the armies. Large number of people have joined in army and they are fighting for the welfare of the Russia. During that time, the king was Tsar Nicholas II. Okay, he was a king whom we have seen Tsar Nicholas family itself, dynasty itself is in such a way that they don't want any other form of government to come into existence. But when Tsar Nicholas was existing, you can find that they had the Duma formation. Duma means D-U-M-A. Duma means parliament. Russian parliament is named as Duma, we have seen. So this parliament has been formed. So when the war was being going on, the war was still extending. It was not going into an end, it's still more extending. So it needs a lot of soldiers in it, armaments to fight against the other allied parties. So what happens is that allied countries is that you can find that the Tsar Nicholas, without consulting with the Duma, that is the parliament, he itself took so much of decisions. Okay, so which created an frustration and kind of depression among the Russian peoples, Russian parliament particularly. You can even see in that example, one example which is being given, where they have been renaming the Petrograd, which has been called as a place, right, which we saw before. Just like the renaming of the Petrograd into a German name, that is Petergard. Okay, so there you can find that lot of German influence which is happening. So German related sentiments is being brought over there, and similarly you can find that an origin, a person who has been originated from Germany has a true origin. It is called as Alexander. Okay, so he has been brought and he is being still more projecting that German influence is lot of existing in Russia during the king's rule. And also you can find that monk was there. Monk means a person, religious oriented person. His name is Rasputin. So Rasputin is also making this aristocracy unpopular. Aristocracy means we saw as kingship rule. So he's stating that it is an unpopular aspect which is going on in Russia. That is one thing. The other thing if you see about the war is that they had left front and the east front, west front and the east front which they were been having. So when they have the west front and the east front, this west front and east front are fighting. That is, they started entering into the European nations. You just have a look at your book, my dear students. The First World War, in the East Front, they had different aspects like where they entered into the West Front, and the Western Army fought stretching. Stretching means without any shelter they are fighting, without any proper shelter of their own, they are fighting for a longer time. And when this longer time of fight is going on in the Eastern France, it is going on. So when Eastern France, when it is going on the eastern side, they had a good idea of capturing. So they started having good idea to enter into France and capture them. Okay, so when they were doing like this, you can find that there was an shocking aspects like more number of people have lost their life. That is, casualty has happened. Many got injured. And you can find that around, they say 7 million people have been under casualty. And in that time, you can find that Russia has lost. From 1914 to between 1917, it has lost in the hands of Austria and Germany. So with this, Russia has lost its war when it is entering into the Germany and Austria. So at that time when they were being returning back to Russia, the Russian army men when they are returning back to Russia, the king have ordered, and also their higher authority has informed them to destroy the crops and buildings. You know why they have been instructed to do so? They feel that the enemy who have been living in Russia should not get proper food and shelter, so that they will not further prolong living over here, and they may even leave the area or they may die. With that motive only, he instructed, or it cannot be said as they started demolishing the crops and the buildings, destroyed both the things, because of which you can find even Russian refugees have been come into existence. 3 million people have come into Russian refugees. Without any food and shelter, they have been considered as Russian refugees. Right? So they have been put into those kind of condition, and there was lot of food shortage was also happening, and still more the king want the condition to go worse, like he wanted all the men to join the army. But you know what the army men said? They don't want to wish to fight in this manner, like destroying the crops and destroying the buildings of their own native peoples. It's really hard, so they said they are not going to do this, and few of them have left the army also. And this is what happened in the war duration. And if you see about the social condition that was existing in Russia, few peoples had so much of problems, like many peoples were being forcefully made to join in the army. The king Nicholas, what he said is that the Alban body means who are all very strong physics, who are having physics means like bodybuilding peoples. So those person has to join in the army compulsorily. So that is what is his main motive, which he said the people, because they will be very good in their physics, they can fight against the enemies because of this reason. Then about industries, if you see, Russia had very few handsome of industries only. It did not have much of industries of its own. It had the supply from the other countries only. But during this war, the supply also has cut off. cut off and the supply was insufficient for them. And also you can see that railway lines were also broken, like they don't have proper connection with the other European countries, and where they are not able to supply their goods to them. So there was a barrier which happened for them for the economical aspect also. And you can find that the industrial production was also disintegrated in small production, small areas. It has been fragmented, and because of this, when all men were being forcefully made to join in army, there was a lack of labor happened. Okay, so there was a lack of labor in industries, lack of labors in the small scale production was also happening. And when this was continuously happening, you can find that there was also food shortage which happened. And wherever the shops are there, food shops are there, you can find that the people had been doing their own rallies, because there was no food, there was no bread available, there was no flours available, which were in lacking condition. So they find it difficult to get the food also. So yes, so now we'll go into the quick recap. So we are going to we have seen about the 2.5 module, that is the First World War and the Russian Revolution. In that we saw that the alliances which have been formed by them is the European Central Alliance is Germany, Austria and Turkey. Then we have one more group, that is France, Britain and Russia. So between these two people only the war is happening. Later you can find that along with Britain, Russia and France, the Italy and Rome has joined hands. Okay, so when this was happening in the year of 1914, you can find the king was the Tsar Nicholas II, who was not bothered about the Duma, that is the parliament at all. So what happens is that the war was being prolonging, so he did not get permission or he did not get any suggestions or consultant from the Dumas. Without that, he is organizing the war to get victory over the war. So this is what is happening. Then you can find that even that was is an example which was shown that name changing of the Peter God is happening. You can find that there was a lot of German influence which was happening in Russia. So you can find Germany is against the Russia. So even though you can find that the king is supporting them. Okay, so the king is, when he is supporting them, there was a lot of German influence which was felt by the common peoples. Okay, so this was happening in the one corner. Another side you can find war was happening, where in the west front and the east front the war is happening. So they started entering into the eastern aspects. So when they are entering through eastern direction, they found it was failure, and they are entering into the eastern direction of the France. They were able to destroy or give a shock to the other enemies by destroying, by creating so much of casualties. Around 7,000 casualties they have been created. Because of this, you can find that Russia has lost in the war between 1914 to 1917 between Germany and Austria. Okay, so when it has lost in the war, you can find that it has to get back into its own nation. So when it is getting back, it has instructed their own workers, their own army men to destroy the crops and buildings, because of which they don't want the enemy to survive in Russia. So that is the main motive of them. And next thing if you see is that the industrial aspect. So industries, there have been very few in hands, and the supply from the European countries have been cut down. Railway tracks were also cut down, and the king has ordered the Alban bodies, means the person who are very strong in physics are supposed to join in the army, because of which the labor's shortage happened. Okay, so labor shortage when happened, and there was no production which was happening in Russia, and because of which bread was in scarcity, flour was in scarcity. So when this scarcity was happening, you can find that all the shops, the people started rallying, striking. Okay, so this is what is about the First World War and Russian Revolution.